mynews.studio.
Right beneath us, there's this vast network of fungi quietly storing billions of tons of carbon. It really raises the question, could the answer to climate change be underground?
And for context, today's date is February 5th, 2026. Let's just set the scene. When people think about carbon capture, usually it's images of big machines or maybe tree planting projects that come to mind. But there's this global carbon sink that's totally hidden from sight, fungal networks deep in the soil. Why is this getting so much attention now?
The significance is pretty striking. Fungi, specifically mycorrhizal fungi, form partnerships with plant roots. So plants do their part by photosynthesizing, turning CO2 into sugars. Then they actually give away a big share of those sugars, about 13 billion tons of carbon dioxide annually, to these fungi. In return, the fungi bring back nutrients like phosphorus and then help lock that carbon deep in the soil. To put it in perspective, that's roughly a third of fossil fuel emissions every year, managed by a system that's been evolving for millions of years.
So, just to get this straight, these fungi are working at a scale that's on par with some of the largest engineered carbon capture efforts, right? Except instead of machines, it's all powered by photosynthesis. No external energy needed. But is that enough? Can these fungal networks actually keep up with the amount of carbon we're putting out?
That's the crucial thing. They're not meant to replace cutting emissions. Their capacity is impressive, but they can't keep pace if fossil fuel use keeps climbing. It's more about their supporting role. They strengthen ecosystems, protect soils, and lock away carbon. The science is pretty solid on that, but the real challenge is making sure these underground networks don't get destroyed.
And that's the sticking point. Deforestation, intensive farming, erosion, these are all chipping away at those fungal systems. Dr. Toby Kears, who recently received the Tyler Prize, actually co-founded the Society for the Protection of Underground Networks, SPUN. What's their strategy for keeping these systems intact?
SPUN's approach is to map fungal diversity globally. They've built something called the Underground Atlas, which covers 130 countries and is based on more than 2.8 billion DNA sequences. This tool helps researchers and policymakers spot biodiversity hotspots. Interestingly, about 90% of these are protected right now. They're also training people known as underground advocates, combining science, policy, and law to push for new protections.
Are there any real-world examples where these protection strategies are being used?
Yes, there are. Restoration projects now specifically try to rebuild fungal networks, especially in degraded forests or farmlands. There's also legal work. SPUN is working with NYU Law to help scientists become advocates for fungi in conservation law. Plus, indigenous partnerships are central. Their traditional land management practices are guiding these efforts.
But from a policy perspective, just knowing fungi matter isn't enough. How do we actually weave fungal carbon storage into national climate plans?
It really begins with the data. The Underground Atlas provides the detailed maps countries need to include fungal carbon sinks in their climate commitments. Land managers can shift away from heavy tillage or single-crop farming and instead use methods that support fungal growth. Plus, global carbon accounting can start measuring and reporting the carbon stored by fungi.
Is any of this already happening, or are we still mostly talking about possibilities?
Some countries have started pilot projects, but for the most part, it's early days. The rules for climate and soil policy were set before we understood how important fungi are. There's a clear need now for updated systems and for the political will to make those changes.
Let's look at incentives. If you're a farmer or landowner, especially somewhere with tight resources, what's the reason to care about these underground networks?
New financial incentives are emerging. Carbon credit markets could pay landowners to protect soils rich in fungi. There's also payment for ecosystem services, or PES, which means direct payments for actions like reduced tillage or agroforestry that help fungal communities. And there's potential for support from green climate funds and private sector investment in restoration.
Do any of these funding models have a track record yet? Or are we still at the pilot phase?
Some, like PES, are already in use for forests and wetlands. Applying them to fungal networks is new and needs solid standardized measurement, something the Atlas is set up to provide. Scaling up will take investment, but the costs are much lower than engineered carbon removal, and the extra benefits, like biodiversity and food security, are significant.
Why is all this so urgent right now?
Dr. Kears is actually the youngest woman ever to win the Tyler Prize, and she's scheduled to give the State of the Environment address in April. Her recognition is timely. It highlights that as climate impacts pick up speed, our window for using nature-based solutions like fungi is shrinking. It's really about changing our mindset. Can we start working with these ecosystems instead of just relying on engineered solutions?
That's really the core question. We know these underground networks exist, and they play a huge role in climate and ecosystem health. The science is clear, the mapping is underway, but the next step is real action through policy, funding, and public support.
Exactly. The opportunity is right in front of us. We just have to decide to act on this new understanding and bring these fungal allies into our climate work.
That wraps up today's episode. Beneath our feet, fungi might just hold the key to a sustainable future. The question is, will we act before these networks are lost?
Thank you for tuning in. This episode was brought to you by mynews.studio. You can try it now for free.